Good evening, peoples. Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation here. Let me get into Defiance. Last week, Defiance was very late in putting out their distribution information. So I did all my calculations the next day and I thought, I'm trading, I'm doing other stuff, I'm not going to put it out. But I had the sheets all updated. So this week, they're back in their normal time. So you just saw my video on Roundhill if you watched that. Here's Defiance. So I'm not too upset with Defiance because they made me a lot of money in MSTX, their 2X MicroStrategy. But I'll share that with you at the end. Last time I told some of that in Roundhill. I'm going to jump straight into Defiance. And then at the end, if you want to hear a strategy, what I did, how I play it, why I'm doing that, I'll update for those that want it. Okay, so let's jump into what Defiance reported. If we look, this is a quick summary. So Defiance had these three funds that were monthly. For the longest time, they paid monthly. They also had a lot of NAV erosion and they did a 3-for-1 reverse split. So when I very first reported on the yield, it was messed up for not taking that into account. Subsequent, Defiance has done several things. First off, they came out with these targeted funds. What are targeted? QQQT, obviously that's the NASDAQ. SPY is the S&P 500. And they're targeting a 20% income, okay, for their yields. And what does that mean? It means a less NAV reduction, a slightly lower yield, so you should be getting at 20%. The perfect world, they give you a 20% income yield and you don't lose anything. You break even on the NAV. In realism, you may get 24% there and lose 4% on the NAV, and you get a net, what I call total return of 20%. If they can achieve that, that's fantastic. The markets dictate a lot of what they can do. Of course, there's some option strategies that they deploy. But again, those work sometimes. Now, on the indexes, they work decently. On these really high vol stocks, sometimes they work, sometimes you get killed. And that's why Defiance and IWMY went to the spreads, but even with the spreads, it's not that great. So when I see a real bullish opportunity, I just jump in and buy a 2X and play that game and don't even write any options, right? So you make even more money that way. All right, let's jump into these. So what I've done here is I'll show you down here on the weeklies what they reported, and then I keep tracking the monthlies and the overall yield, and I'll show you out to the right what all those numbers are as well. So let's just go straight to QQQY, the NASDAQ 100. They declared 33.97 cents. Okay, that's a yield of 51.89 because the price of QQQY is 34.04. So nice yield, right? This payment is up over last week. I think I have that. Yeah. So that's why I put this little QWY up here. So this is QQQY, WDTE, and then what's the I for? IWMY, trying to go from Roundhill to Defiance and remembering. So NASDAQ, S&P, and Russell, right? That's what you're looking at. So last week, the NASDAQ paid 26, now it paid 33. The WTE, which is the what? S&P or, yeah, the S&P went from 28 to 33. These are so close, right? So we know the markets have moved up since the election. So then you only went up a little bit on their Russell, which I'm surprised, 32.9 to 33.9. Yes, that is the Russell, the IWMY. Okay, so those are the individual payments. I used to just track everything, and if you go and you look at these targeted funds, they last paid at the end of October, right on 10/30. So I'll have another week here, and then on the fourth week of the weeklies, we'll time that all of these guys, right? This was a fourth payment, and then everybody paid, so we'll have one more on the weeklies. Then in these targeted Defiance funds, we'll have over here, we'll have these guys reporting. So let's take a look at what all that's doing. So while there are high yields here, let's look overall. And again, for comparison's sake, your results are going to vary because you maybe didn't buy at that time. But if you bought this at inception, let's go here, right? They were QQY, WTE, and they had JEPI was the name here for the WTE. 58, 58, and 61. And you bought those all the way back in 23. Now, your miles are going to vary because you probably bought it at a different price. You just have to calculate where you are. So here's the total dividends, right? Of all of these, $34, $24, and I go out because you see that I'm pulling this from these numbers, and on these numbers, I go all the way out here and add everything. I added them all when they're monthly, and then I keep adding the weeks along the way. All right, so let's finish up on these guys. So you have 412 days. Well, I simply say 365 is a year. So your 59% dividend yield, because that's over 412 days, over 365, it would be 5265. Now, my loss is just left at the 412 days. So technically, I'd have to go in and figure out what it did at the latest 365, right? But that's going to be an advantage typically for you. So you made it big here, but you got killed when it went down a lot. But it's still at 34 from 58. But you made a lot of that yield because it paid for a long time. So I'm showing a 10%, a 9%, and a 13% total return. Now, these guys, with the exception of QQQT, this one is very close to the target, right? Its current price is 2014. It launched on 3/7 at $20.05. So that gives it its actual dividend. Okay, it's been 1327 over 251 days, but annualized that's 1930, and then you got a little bit of capital gain so far. So you're right at 1995. That's matching a targeted return. And also they're 2 weeks into this. So in another 2 weeks, they're going to have another payday, right? So all of a sudden, this could get over 20, stay right here, drop down a little bit. Very likely could get over 20. Now, the oil fund, USOI, right? That was doing good when oil was up. Oil's been pulling back. I think oil's going to turn up before long, but we shall see. So overall, that's negative, right? Where have you been hurt? Well, because the current price is 1440. The classic, you buy it at 1994, it's at 1440, right? 187 days. So you got a 54% annualized loss on that guy. And your dividend annual is earned you 25.94, but when you annualize that, 187, and not quite. It's like 1.95 times. So that you're still getting a loss there, though, people. You know, now if oil turns and runs up, this is going to go back into the positive. That's all it takes is simply oil going up so that the underlying index goes up. All right. USO is that index. All right. So this one got hurt a little bit here recently. Same price, right? Very close to this, 1994, but it's not performing that well because this one had a slight gain And this one actually on the NASDAQ has a loss from when they launched. And that's only a 621, so it's only got 145 days. So it's 6% dividend so far. Again, a smaller sample size. This very likely can perform better over time. All right, guys, that's what I got for you on Defiance. And I will have something out on the Group C when we get that from Yielmax. This is nighttime on the East Coast, so it'll be, 6 o'clock in the morning, that type of thing. Okay, peoples, again, this is Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation. I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Have a great one. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.